So I have right here the most intelligent piece of paper in the world. So what do you all think there might be about this piece of paper that would make it the most intelligent piece of paper in the world, for me to make that claim? So hands, I can't answer everybody at once. So up there, you put up your hand first. Oh, wait for the mic. Better idea.
Information.
Say one more time.
Information.
So information. So that's a good idea. Maybe there's information on this piece of paper that it could be a secret that would help a spy or a country, or it might be a recipe for really great chocolate chip cookies, or it might be information about some disease. That's a good idea. What else might make this the most intelligent piece of paper in the world? Yep. Finish chewing whenever you're ready.
Secrets.
Sorry, say that again?
Secrets.
So it could be secret. So it could be a special type of knowledge. That's a good idea. We have somebody up here.
Guys, this is for the webcast, so you won't hear yourself out loud.
Decoded.
So it could be decoded. So again, we talked about earlier that we talked about encrypting information. So maybe this is a way to decrypt things. That's a good guess as well. Any other ideas? Sort of maybe moving away from knowledge. What else might make this the most intelligent piece of paper in the world? So we have some people over here. Sorry, I'm going to make you run. Run, 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 run. Good job.
It can be anything that you want it to be.
So it could be anything I want it to be. So maybe I've been doing research in HCI, and this is actually a new display where the Smart Ink can move around and display anything I want it to display. That's not what's on this piece of paper, but that's a good guess.
I think it's about folding it.
Sorry?
Folding it, there's a thing. Unlimited number of folding.
Unlimited number of folding, like origami. So maybe I just have it folded in half, so I haven't done anything like that, but maybe there's something special about folding the piece of paper. That's a good guess. Let's try one more.
I don't think there's anything on the piece of paper, so you can put anything on it later.
What? One more time?
I don't think there's anything on the piece of paper.
So maybe there's nothing on the piece of paper, and it's very philosophical that this is like Kung Fu Panda, that anything could go on this piece of paper, and that's what makes it the most intelligent piece of paper in the world. That's a great idea. Have you guys ever heard of pieces of paper that have computers in them? Has anyone ever heard of that? So you might guess that this is a piece of paper like that, and I do have a piece of paper with a computer in it here. Okay. So that's nice. And this is incredibly difficult to get. It cost me $2 last night to buy this. And the computer in this piece of paper is more powerful than the computer that got Neil Armstrong to the moon. So for $2, I was able to get more power than what he had. So we've been dancing around what might be on this. And what actually is on this is a special type of knowledge. It's actually instructions which provide information how to actually do something. So it's not just general information, it's instructions. And specifically what it is instructions how to always win any game of tic-tac-toe that you're ever going to play. So my most intelligent piece of paper in the world has never lost a game of tic-tac-toe. Sometimes it wins, sometimes it ties, but it never loses. So I'll get the volunteers to distribute copies of your very own most intelligent pieces of paper in the world to the audience. And I'd like 2 volunteers. I'd like one person who will be the eyes and the hands for the intelligent piece of paper. Okay, you 2 right here, great. And I'd like the other person to represent, there'll be more chances for volunteers later, so you'll be at the top of the stack when there's another chance. I do. So if any volunteers come, yeah. Okay, so do you both know how to play tic-tac-toe? Yeah? And do either of you think you're extra good at tic-tac-toe? Okay, you're very good. Okay, so you will be the representative for the smartest piece of paper in the world, and I'll tell you what the instructions are, and you just play however you want to play. Play the best game of tic-tac-toe you can. So you can go right up to the board here. There's pieces of chalk, and go ahead and make the grid with 9 spaces for tic-tac-toe. So one big one. Sorry, you're going to play the same board. You're going to play against one another.
Same board?
One big board, yep. So sorry, what's your name?
Hazel.
Hazel, and what's your name?
Omar.
Omar. Okay, so Hazel is going to play for the most intelligent piece of paper in the world. All she's going to do is do what it tells her to do. Omar will represent humanity. So when it's Omar's turn, feel free to shout out advice if you think you can help him play a better game of tic-tac-toe. So for Hazel, move number 1, according to the most intelligent piece of paper in the world, is go in a corner. So pick any corner and go there and play an X. So that's a bold first move in tic-tac-toe. Okay, so now it's Omar's turn. Shout out advice if you think there's a better... Omar? Yeah. Okay. Okay, so that's great, the middle choice. So now Hazel, the most intelligent piece of paper in the world, wants you for move number 2. If the other player did not go there, then go in the opposite corner to move number 1. Else, go in a free corner. We can go in the opposite corner, so let's go there. Okay, so Omar, go ahead and play wherever you'd like. Okay, so that's a bold move, great move. So move number 3 for the most intelligent piece of paper in the world. If there are 2 X's and a space in a line, then go in that space. There aren't, unfortunately. Else if there are 2 O's and a space in a line, which there is, then go in that space. So place an X in that space, blocking the two O's.
That's cheating, sir.
How's that cheating? So this is what humanity starts to do when they get in trouble. They start shouting cheating. Okay, so Omar, go ahead. Okay, so now for move number 4, again, if there are 2 X's and a space in a line, then go in that space. Else, if there are 2 O's and a space in a line, then go in that space. Very good. Else, go in a free corner. So now go ahead, Omar. Oh, okay. And for move number 5, go in the free space. Okay, so the smartest piece of paper remains undefeated. Okay, so good job, Omar. Thanks so much. Thank you so much, Hazel. Okay, so yay, we're happy about that. Okay. So now, are you convinced that this is the smartest piece of paper in the world? Are you okay with that claim? So one person says yes, a few people grumble no, and so some of you don't like that. Okay, so let's settle down again. Good, thank you. So what's written on this paper, we could call this an algorithm, we could call this a computer program, we could call this just instructions. And in any case, everything that a computer does is following instructions that are just like this. A set of instructions that one by one it goes through and it follows them. And creative computer programmers then come up with clever instructions which allow computers to play games, which allows them to calculate mathematical equations. We could store data. We might set people up on dates. We might browse the web or listen to music. We might target advertising. We might do social networking. We might make phone calls, exchange email, run factories. There's a lot of different things that we can do, right? And here at Waterloo, our mantra when we're doing outreach like this or when we're doing recruiting is we say that computer science is changing the world. And we almost don't need to say that. It's obviously changing the world. It's also obviously has changed the world. Your teachers or your parents or I would just see a radically different world, what your experiences as teenagers, than what we experienced when we were teenagers. And it's going to continue to change the world. So when I was in grade 8, I had Mr. Severson for grade 8 English, and on the first day of class, excuse me, he said to us, I don't want you submitting your homework that you've done it on a computer. And he said, it's not fair if the computer does your homework for you. I want you to do your English homework. And I don't know what he thought we were going to do, write in an essay on a computer. That would be unfair. But he said, I'm going to deduct marks from you if you do your homework on the computer. I want it handwritten, and I'll deduct marks otherwise. And I really liked computers at the time, and I found that kind of a funny thing to insist upon. But then he followed it up with, he said, all of you think computers are smart. And he said, computers aren't smart, they're dumb. All computers can do is what you tell them to do. And he's right that all computers can do is what we tell them to do, right? We give them a set of instructions and they follow them. But I found it a little bit of a strange thing that he then claimed from this that computers are dumb. The fact that they follow instructions makes them dumb. And I remember when people stopped saying this, and it was in my second year, the summer after my second year of university, and I wanted to be a cliche, so I went backpacking around Europe. And one day when I was in some country over in Europe, all of the headlines and all of the papers that I saw were talking about IBM's supercomputer Deep Blue had defeated the world champion at chess, Garry Kasparov. And after this, people stopped saying computers are dumb for some reason. Once a computer can defeat the grand master of chess in the world, this is an activity that almost anyone would agree is an intelligent activity, and it becomes a lot harder to make this assertion, computers are dumb. Before the match, and so this was when they were just talking generally about the match, it hadn't happened yet, interviewers were talking to Garry Kasparov, and they asked him what he thought it would mean if he lost or if a chess master lost to a computer. And this is his response.
I think we'll find enough ability, human ability, to fight, especially against a computer. But if computer beats one day, I don't know what will happen. I don't think that chess will be stopped, but it will be very unpleasant not only for the chess players, but for the human race itself, because it means you can provide better mind than if you want.
Okay, so his view before he lost to the match was that this is going to be a problem for chess players, but it's also going to be a problem for the human race, that this is going to indicate a superior mind if a computer can beat a human at chess. And so when he lost to Deep Blue, the computer and the human were playing chess in very, very different ways. The supercomputer that IBM built was evaluating 200 million positions per second, going through all of these positions and using the analysis of all these positions to then decide what would be the best move that could be made. Garry Kasparov and humans who are good at chess would typically play through pattern recognition. So they'd match the current state of the board to a state that the board had been in some known game, and then they would follow what the sequence of moves were that were successfully performed to play a good game by that past opponent. And Garry Kasparov, you just saw the video where he almost seemed amused by the idea of a human losing to a computer and said this is going to be a really big deal. And after he lost, his response was, and he wrote this in 2009, that it was an impressive achievement, of course, and a human achievement by the members of the IBM team. But Deep Blue was only intelligent the way your programmable alarm clock is intelligent. Not that losing to a $10 million alarm clock made me feel any better. So memory's a funny thing. He has a different view of the match now that it's over and that he's lost, and now he's saying that because the computer beat him in a certain way, this doesn't indicate a superior mind. This doesn't indicate anything special about the computer, but instead it indicates something special about the programmers who wrote the computer. And maybe that's a fair perspective. So when we talk about games generally, we can divide games up with some general characteristics, and we can consider perfect versus imperfect information. And so the difference here is that with perfect information in a game, all of the players know the exact same state of the game at any point in the game. So a game like chess or backgammon or checkers or Go or Othello, anyone can look at the board and they know the exact state of the game. With imperfect information, some information is hidden, and the players have access to that information. One player has access to that information, and then other players don't. And examples are Scrabble, where you have the tiles in front of you, or Bridge, or most other card games, Settlers of Catan, if you're familiar with that game. We can also divvy up games into games which are deterministic versus games that are stochastic. And a deterministic game is one where you're going to make a move and you know exactly what the outcome will be of that move, and then you can predict counter moves to that move and so on and so on and so on throughout the game. And chess is a great example of this. A stochastic game is a game that introduces an element of chance. So each time there's a chance element, it's harder to predict what the game state's going to look like after that's occurred. And if you've played backgammon, the first part of your move in backgammon is you roll the dice, and then you make moves based on what numbers are on the dice. And so you don't know before your move begins exactly which numbers are going to come up on the dice and what your move's going to look like. And we can then divvy up games based on these two characteristics. So we can talk about games that have perfect information and that are deterministic and that have chance. We can talk about games with imperfect information that are deterministic or that have chance. And in this talk, I'm only going to talk about perfect information, deterministic games. And so we certainly can write a program that'll play any of these other games, and people have written computer programs to play all these other games. But it'll just make the talk a little bit more understandable if we just focus on this one type of game. We also might talk about what's really the goal of the computer player. So Deep Blue wanted to win. It wanted to beat Garry Kasparov at chess. But if you buy a game at the store, or if you download a game off the internet and you're playing it, probably the goal of that computer player is just to help you have a good time. And so the computer player might try to be challenging, but might not always try to beat you. And so what I'm talking about here is a computer player that always plays to win, that always wants to win. And one way that we can think about this, and we're getting back to this again, trees, which are a type of graph, which you've heard in all three talks today. We didn't actually coordinate it. It's just very hard to talk about computer science without wandering into graphs. And we can talk about a decision tree. And so a decision tree, we're going to have some particular point in time where we're going to have the game board in a particular state. We can then consider each of the edges, like Ashraf discussed in the last talk, as being a move that could be made on this game state and would lead to a new state. So in the case of Tic-Tac-Toe, if we have an empty board, there's three possibilities. A player might play in the center, they might play on a side, or they might play in one of the corners. And so we have edges leading to each of these three. Now somebody might say, well, wait a second, there's 9 possible moves here. Why are you only showing 3 children here? What do you think's going on here? Why do you think it's legitimate for me to just show 3 nodes here, 3 possible moves? Yep.
Because it doesn't matter where you place it. If you flip it, it'll be in the same spot.
Exactly. There's symmetries to a tic-tac-toe board. So we can just think about it. If you play in the lower right-hand corner, you can just rotate that board twice, and then you get in the exact same situation as when it's in the upper left-hand corner. So then from each of those states, after X has made its first move, we could then think of what O's response would be to that. And in the first case, we can take advantage of symmetries again. So if X played in the center, then O has 2 options to play on a corner or to play on a side. Both of those are shown, whereas if X plays in a corner or on a side, there's more options open to O. And so this could continue and continue, and we could make a tree which would show every possible state that the tic-tac-toe board might go into, starting with the empty board, and then we could just have a computer go through all these states and decide which is the best path to go through to play tic-tac-toe. When we start talking about trees, we'll use some certain terminology. So we might talk about the depth of a tree. And in the context of a game, this is the number of moves which might occur in a game. So in this tree that I'm showing you on the upper right here, it has a depth of 4. There's 4 levels here. We can talk about the size of a tree, and this is the number of game states that might be led to from the current position that we start the game in. And in this example, there's 12 different game states that we might move to. We can also talk about the average branching factor, and this is from an average, a typical game state, how many different moves are open to us that we might make. And in this case, on average, there's about 2 moves in any particular game state. If I chop off the top of this tree and just consider the first 2 levels, it'll then have a depth of 2, it'll have a size of 4, there's 4 nodes here, and it's now going to have an average branching factor of 3. So if we talk about chess, there's an average branching factor of 35. So in an average representative chessboard, there's 35 moves that are open to one player. In tic-tac-toe, we could consider that there's an average branching factor of 5. So for the first move, there's 9 possible positions the person could play in. In the second move, there's 8. In the third, there's 7. So on until the last move where there's only one place where the person can play. The depth of a typical game of chess is around 50 moves per player, so 100 moves total. And the depth for a game of tic-tac-toe is 9 moves if it ends up in a draw. So if neither player wins, it'll probably go for 9 moves. In tic-tac-toe, there's a search tree of 5, the average branching factor, to the exponent 9 possible positions that the tic-tac-toe state might get into, which gives us just under 2 million possible moves. So if Deep Blue can calculate 200 million positions per second, how long do you think it would take it to make a decision about what move to make in tic-tac-toe? No one? 200 million? Oh, yeah, we need the mic. Okay, yeah.
Approximately like 1/200th of a second.
So it'd be very, very, very fast, absolutely. Now, in chess, the search tree is 35 to the exponent 100, which is a massive, 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 inconceivably large number. It's more than all the grains of sand and all the beaches in the entire world. It's more than all the atoms in your body. It's more than all the atoms in all the bodies of every human who has ever lived. It's more than all the atoms in the solar system. It's more than all the atoms in the universe. It's massive. And there's no way that any modern computer, or even any computer that we could conceive of, could actually consider all of these different chess positions. It's just way, 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 way too much information. So instead, when we're thinking about a decision tree in chess, we think out to a certain depth and then we just cut it off. And so we might try to think ahead 8 or 9 moves. And then that becomes a tree that's of a size that we can consider with a computer like Deep Blue when we can't consider something that needs to think about all of the different positions. So one refinement of this that we can consider is known as a Minimax tree. And so we're going to take a decision tree that starts with the game in some particular state, and then we consider edges leading to all the possible new positions, and so on and so on and so on and so on. And each level, we're going to designate this either a max level, which means it's our turn to play, or a min level, which means it's our opponent's chance to play. We can think about all the way down to the leaves in the tree, the final states of the game when the game's over. And in Tic-Tac-Toe, we might win, which we like that, so we're going to assign it a utility or a value of 1, saying it's good to win. We might lose, where our opponent then wins, and we don't like losing, so we're going to assign that a value or a utility of -1. We might then also consider games that are a draw. And it's better to win than to draw, but it's also better to draw than to lose, so we might say that draw has a value of 0. So we could now take this tree that we've created with all these leaves, the terminal states of the game, which have a value attached to them, -1, 0, or 1, and we can now work our way back through the tree, going up a level from the final state of the game and looking at the move right before that. If it's at a max level, it means it's our chance to play. So we get to pick which of the leaves we go into for the last move, and obviously we're going to pick whichever one's the best. We'll pick the maximum. If it's our opponent's chance to play, then they're going to pick whichever is the best for the opponent, which will be the worst for us, and so they'll pick whichever is the minimum child from that tree. And we can work our way back all the way through until we determine values for all of the different moves that we can choose for our next move, and then we just pick whichever move will give us the highest value, and that will hopefully get us into a state where we win the game, or in the worst case, where we draw the game. Now, this is an example within computer science of a type of problem that we call divide and conquer. So it's hard to say, how do I win a game of tic-tac-toe, or how do I win a game of chess? But it's a lot easier to say, what is the best move I should make at this particular point in the game? And so we're breaking down a hard problem into easier problems. What decision should I make for each move? And then we combine those, and the end result is we get a computer program that can play a game. This is a good approach in life as well. So it's really hard to think, how do I study for grade 10 geography? That's a big problem to deal with. But it might be a little bit easier to think about, how do I study for chapter 5 from grade 10 geography? And it might be easier to think about, how do I study for this section of chapter 5 from grade 10 geography? And you break a problem up into a small enough problem, you solve that sub-problem, and then just keep doing that, put all your solutions together, and you have a solution to a much bigger problem. So currently, computers can beat humans in games like chess and tic-tac-toe, checkers, Connect 4, Reversi, Sudoku, and Scrabble. And some of these games have beat the top human players since chess has been beaten. So checkers was beaten about 5 years ago, and Scrabble was beaten 2 or 3 years ago. And they didn't get the kind of press that a computer beating the chess champion did. And so there was something special about chess that really made the world sort of stop for a second and take notice when computers beat humans. We're not totally defeated, though. There are still games that humans perform better than computers at, and examples of this include things like Go and poker and crossword puzzles and playing bridge. And so poker and bridge especially have a communication element, which humans tend to be better at as compared to computers. So now we can step back right to the beginning of my talk. We can go all the way back, and I claimed that this was the most intelligent piece of paper in the world. And I think a large number of you were skeptical of this claim. And so now we can come back to this and say, is this intelligence that the computer is doing when it wins these games? Is this intelligent what the piece of paper is doing when it plays tic-tac-toe? Or is it like what Gary Kasparov says, that the only intelligence going on here is with the people who come up with the instructions? And we might ask a question like, can machines fly? And we're going to say, yes, they can fly. We know that airplanes can fly in their machines, so we can say yes to that. We might then ask, can machines swim? And that's a bit of a funny question, because submarines can travel underwater, but would we really call what they're doing swimming? It seems like the question doesn't really make exact sense, that maybe there's a better question that we should be asking. And so then we can say, can machines think? And this is a tough question. Is this like the first question that we can say yes or no? Or is it like the second question that it doesn't really make sense what you're asking about here? And so then we might even say, is this meaningful? Do we care about this question? Is this some philosophical question that's interesting to debate, but it's not really an important question? And Alan Turing was mentioned in, I believe, both of the earlier presentations today, and he was a very, very, very famous British computer scientist who was instrumental in helping to win the Second World War for the Allies. And he didn't like questions that you couldn't come up with an answer. So he wrote a paper, and he said, let's think of a related question that we can answer. And so he talked about a game where you're trying to differentiate between men and women. And the rules of this game is that player A is a man, player B is a woman, and we have a third player C, who's a judge. And the judge has to figure out which of the other two players is the man and which of the other two players is the woman, only communicating with them through written notes. So the judge can write whatever they want on the note and it gets passed to the player. The players can write whatever they want on the note and it gets passed to the judge. And player A, the man, is doing everything he can to trick the judge. So he's going to pretend that he's a woman. Player B is actually a woman and she's trying to help the judge. So she's saying whatever she can to actually prove to the judge that yes, indeed, I am a woman. And at the end of his paper, he just sort of as a throwaway comment said, it could be interesting to expand this to computers and humans instead of men and women. And this has been known as the Turing test, and this is an answerable question. We can run a competition, and we can compare whether judges can identify software programs pretending to be human versus real humans who are interacting with them. And when this was run in September 2011, one of these tournaments, one of the pieces of software, Cleverbot, was identified as human 59.3% of the time, and and on average, the real humans were identified as human 63.3% of the time. So it's not quite there, but it's pretty close. And so if you were a judge in a game like this, what's the sort of question that you might want to ask to determine if somebody was a computer or a human? What might be a good question to try to differentiate between them? Yep.
Something to do with sarcasm, because computers can.
So absolutely, you might have sarcasm, a certain tone to your question that maybe the computer wouldn't pick up on it and it would answer inappropriately. That's a good idea. Any other ideas? Sarcasm, that's our only. Okay, is your hand going up? No?
We'll come back.
Okay.
There's one up here.
Emotions.
So emotion. So you could ask them to describe how do you feel when you play with your pet dog or something like that. Sure. Any other ideas?
Question that only applies to humans, like what's your mother's name or something? A computer
Sure.
doesn't have that, so
It doesn't have an answer to that. So all of these types of questions have been tried in these games, and when somebody writes a piece of software, it tries its best to then deal with these questions. Other things people have tried is they'll ask it a mathematical question, and if you get the answer back very quickly, that shows you that it's a computer answering it, not a human. People have sometimes asked them about current events, but sometimes these things trip you up. So in one competition that occurred years ago when Barack Obama was in the middle of his first presidential election, the vice presidential candidate for the Republicans, Sarah Palin, was, a lot of people didn't like her for some reason. She was quite a polarizing figure. And so the judge asked and said, who is Sarah Palin? And he got the response back saying, I don't know who Sarah Palin is. And he says, that's a computer. And it turned out that it was a French librarian who didn't follow American politics, so she didn't know who Sarah Palin was. So he incorrectly thought she was a computer because she didn't know that. And so whenever they're trying to write these bots, they call them, that'll talk to people, it's trying to deal with all of these sorts of questions to pretend that they're human. And Cleverbot, which did quite well, that won that 2011 contest, a reporter decided it'd be nice to have an interview with Cleverbot. And so the interviewer connected to Cleverbot and said, so now that you've passed the Turing test, what are you going to try and do next? And Cleverbot says, yep, this is pretty much it. And the user said, do you think you can eventually improve your scores? And Cleverbot says, improvement happens over time. And it continues with this, with Cleverbot giving sort of a slightly off, but slightly cryptic responses to any question that gets asked to it. And you might look at this and wonder, how could anyone ever mistake this for a human? And I think that's a fair question when you read something like this. But we have an incredible capacity to anthropomorphize things in our environment. So we like to talk. We like to talk to our pets, and we talk to them as if they might be a person. Sometimes we fall in love with our car and we give it a name and we treat it like it's a person to be taken care of. And so clearly sometimes we're ready to deal with computers and interact with them as if they're humans. So now, let's have a look again at the most intelligent piece of paper, but I'm going to change the rules a little bit now. I'm going to let humans go first to give them a little bit of an advantage over the most intelligent piece of paper in the world. And so you had your hand up earlier, so you can come down, and I need a second volunteer. Yay! Yay! So a second? Great. Come on down. Okay, so did you want to play tic-tac-toe or play for the piece of paper?
I'll play tic-tac-toe.
Okay, good. So go ahead, and you get to play for the piece of paper. Okay, so now humanity gets to go first. So again, feel free to shout out your suggestions. Where should he start? Corner. So there's somebody thought corner was a good idea.
Jump right middle.
So let's. Okay, we'll do O's. Very good. Okay, so now for move number 1, go in a corner. So any corner. Okay, so humanity gets to go second. Or go again. Go third. Okay, so move number 2. If the other player did not go there, then go in the opposite corner to move 1. Else go in a free corner. So the other player didn't go here, so let's go in that corner. And it's back to humanity. Very good. So humanity wins. Good. So, in computer science, we call this framing. And so when it's in exactly the right situation, this piece of paper seems to be very smart. But when it's suddenly in a different context that it didn't anticipate, like going second, it suddenly breaks down and starts making very, very, very bad decisions. So what I would like all of you to do is you have a blank piece of paper in your folder, and I'm going to give you 5 or 10 minutes, and I want you to design an algorithm that does a better job of playing second than the most intelligent piece of paper does, and then we'll have a trial by combat. So my advice to you is to use the most intelligent piece of paper as a guide. So since you're playing second, you know that the first player will have played somewhere, and we know that we can break this down to 3 different positions: the center, a corner, or a side. So I would suggest for move number 1 in your algorithm that you do something like move number 2. Do an if, an else if, and an else, and deal with those 3 situations. Okay? So I'll give you 10 minutes, and I'll throw up this algorithm as well. Okay, everyone, it seems like a few people have finished their algorithm, so let's start. I'm going to need 3 volunteers now. I'm going to need a first volunteer who has some instructions they think will work. Okay, come back up. Hazel, come on up. And now I need 2 more volunteers to play for each of the algorithms, to be the hands and the eyes. Okay, yeah, come on up again. And a 3rd volunteer. Yeah, great, come on up. Down. Okay, so read out your move number 1.
So middle if X in corner.
Okay, so middle if X in corner. Nice. Okay, move number 2. If the other player did not go there, then go in the opposite corner to move 1. Nice.
Put in opposite corner. Oh, okay, that's taken.
Read the whole instruction. It's okay if it messes up. We'll just follow exactly what's written. So read out what you wrote down for move number 2.
I put in opposite corner of previous move.
Okay, so you can't do that.
Yeah.
And did you write anything else?
No.
Okay, so we'll let you expand on your algorithm. We're debugging.
Okay.
So what would you want to do now if you
One
couldn't?
side.
Sorry?
Top side.
So we'll modify his algorithm and say otherwise go in one of the 2 free corners, or one of the free corners. So yeah, go ahead there.
One corner side.
Side.
Top
So
top.
go in the side. Okay, very good. So move number 3. If there are 2 X's and a space in a line, then go in that space. There isn't. Else if there are 2 O's and a space in a line, then go in that space. Very good. Okay, so he's threatening you. Read move number 3 on your algorithm.
Defend if 2 X's are aligned.
Okay, so put an O there. Okay, move 4. If there are 2 X's and a space in a line, then go in that space. There aren't. Else if there are 2 O's and a space in a line, then go in that space. Very good. Okay, read your next one.
Defend if 2 X's are aligned.
Okay, and then go in the free space. So that's pretty good. His algorithm was able to draw the most intelligent piece of paper in the world. Very nicely done. And that was far, far, far better than the most intelligent piece of paper in the world did when it was trying to play second. So somebody else who has a written algorithm, so wrote out every step of your algorithm, throw up your hand, and you're ready to test it. Yeah, come on down. And 2 more volunteers to be our hands and eyes. So two more volunteers. 2 more. Okay, we'll do our own. We'll play for ourselves like savages. Okay, so move number 1, go in a corner.
Okay.
Read out your move number 1, yep. Great.
Move number 1 is going to a corner as well.
Okay. Okay, move 2. If the other player did not go there, then go in the opposite corner to move number 1. She did. Else go in a free corner.
Okay. If there are 2 X's and a space in that line, they'll go in that space.
Nice. Okay. If there are 2 X's and a space in a line, then go in that space. There's not. Else if there are 2 O's and a space in a line, then go in that space. There's not. Else go in a free corner.
Okay, if there's 2... Oh no! Okay.
Okay. So let's play it through. Keep going.
Okay. So if there's 2 X's in a line, put an O.
Yep. So there is, and go.
This one or this one?
Yeah. Either one. Good. If there are 2 X's and a space in a line, then go in that space. So good job. Well done. Good job. Okay. Okay, so is there any other algorithms? Does one of the younger people up front who I saw you guys were working out algorithms, do you want to try your algorithm? No? Too shy? Do you want to try yours? No? Does anybody have an algorithm that they're confident in? So the intelligent piece of paper is 100%, humans are 50-50. Who thinks that they can raise that for the humans? Anybody have an algorithm that they think? Here? Yeah?
Middle, side, let's go.
Okay, yay! You're my savior. Come on down. Okay, so we can play for ourselves again. And so, again, I am X. I go first. Move 1, go in a corner.
Move 1, go in middle.
Go in middle, okay, go ahead. Move 2. If the other player did not go there, then go in the opposite corner to move 1.
If player 1 picked opposite, if player 1 picks 2 corners, go to side.
Go to a side?
Yeah.
Okay, so the next instruction in his algorithm was if the player chose the other corner, then go to the side. So pick one of the sides? Yeah. Woo! Is right. So this is looking good. Move number 3. If there are 2 X's and a space in a line, then go in that space. There aren't. Else if there are 2 O's and a space in a line, then go in that space. So there are. Okay, so read your third move.
If there are 2 X's and a space in a line, go to that space. Else if there are 2 O's.
Very good. So he blocks me. Move 4, if there are 2 X's and a space in a line, then go in that space. There isn't. Else if there are 2 O's and a space in a line, then go in that space. And there are. Let's go ahead.
Move 4. If there are 2 O's in a space in a line, go in that space. If there are 2 X's and a space in a line, go in that space.
Very good. And then move number 5, go in the free space, and we have a draw. Okay, very good. Okay, so humanities at 67%, that's pretty good. Now, if we took the algorithms that they created for playing second and we tried to use those to play tic-tac-toe going first, what do you think would happen? Do you think their algorithms would perform very well? No, because they weren't designed to do that. They were designed to play second and they were very good at that, but they wouldn't be very good at playing first. So thank you all so much for coming to Waterloo today. We've really enjoyed having you here. And thank you so much for your wonderful behavior. I really appreciate it.